Hi there, this is Chuck with Pocket Snakes. I'm looking at braiding some cuffs. So if you make a loop and tie a doubled stop knot, and you fold a cow hitch into it, into the knot, so you can attach a mandrel. In this case, it's just a silly Sharpie. I think everybody probably has one of those. And I'm going to be braiding a set of cuffs. I'm going to change the angle a little bit so you can see. So I've got this is a neon turquoise paracord, 650 cord. You want to find the center bites. You want to find black paracord. Find the center bites. So each of these strips is a little over 7 foot long. So you want to do a square start. So this is what a square start looks like. This is a square start. So that's one way to do it. But in this case, because I want the colors to create M's, I'm going to do a square start a little differently. I'm going to do a square start this way. And so what this does is it creates a pattern of rings, or a pattern of 8 plates that make rings. So in this case, I'm going to start right here. Hey, I've got 2 viewers. Thank you for joining me. I'm just plating up, and I'm going to show you a few tricks with braiding. So if you're braiding on a mandrel, in this case I'm using a Sharpie as a quote-unquote mandrel. We go over 2 under 2, and over 2 under 2 on an 8 plate. Go under 2, over 2, and over 2, under 2. And we want to complete that for a full circuit. So now this strand is the next strand, but you need to put it under this strand because we're going under 2 over 2. Under 2 over 2, under 2 over 2. And I started with the fluorescent turquoise and just snug it up to your mandrel. So I started with, so I've got 1, 2, 3. I need to do one more to be at 4 on each side, so that's 8 plates. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go from a round 8 plate to a flat 8 plate. And with even plating, it's kind of weird because you have to pretend there's extra strands. So you go under 2 over. And on this side, you go under 2 over 2. And this will start to make M's or W's, but it makes M shapes. Under 2 over 2. So we're going from a round plate to a flat plate. Hello there, Cristano. I'm not used to these when people join and text things, but you're welcome to ask questions. So I call these Arizona cuffs, and they're a form of rope handcuffs that I make. They're pretty simple to make, but this is how you get the patterns and switch between flat and round braiding. So it's under 2 over and under 2 over. So under 2 over 1 and under 2 over 2. It makes this M&M pattern, which is kind of a cool pattern for an 8-plate pattern. So now I started on a Sharpie, but I want a hand span, so about 9 inches. My hand span's 9 inches. Yours may be 8 or less, but you want about 9 inches. So I'm going to try and back the... This is not working the way quite I wanted, but I'm going to back the tripod up. I'm going to run out of stuff. Mandrel is not is not super tight. If you pull on it, it will have issues. But we're just doing a flat braid with 8 strands and 2 tones. It makes a pretty M&M pattern or a WW pattern. I'm after a 9-inch hand span, and I'd like to end the flat braid with the turquoise color. So from where this goes flat, I'd like it to be 9 inches. So I'm going to end on the black strand, leaving the top ones being turquoise. So this makes a flat wrist loop, and this circular section creates an area where we can pull the cuffs through each other. So the last strand goes that direction, so I'm going to bring this one under and through. We're going to switch to a round plating to make a round section that's 9 inches long. This is out of paracord. A giant mouse, I think it says. Well, it might be a giant mouse. But we're now doing a round plate. So we're pulling this around and through under 2 over 2. That's how loose this is. It barely holds onto the pin. So I'm pulling on is not really the best answer. So I'm not seating this with a whole lot of tension. I'm just plating. But you do have to roll these strands around so they're going around in circles. This makes kind of a bunch of rings of color in an 8-plate. So, been trying to show more different technique for braiding. You need to make sure you roll each of these strands as you go around, because they're not going to roll themselves. And it's kind of bad because I can't tension this a whole lot. You can tension it a little bit. It creates a nice round section of rope. We want, again, about 9 inches or a hand span. I'm going to work on this for a minute. I'm just plating away. And of course, I forgot my glasses again, so reading the screen is a little difficult, but if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. This is one of those things where I have to braid this anyway. I thought I would show a video of it. So this is 650 cord, a little different than 550. It's missing the inner cores. I'm just braiding away. I'm going to put a pin in it real quick. And I'm going to try and explain what I'm doing here. So I'm going to pull this through. And this is a piece of shoelace material, 9/16 if you care, or 11/16 shoelace material on a little paracord needle. You got to put all the ends together. Because you want to pull it through. So I got 3 out of 4 there. Notice my fingers between these 4 and these 3. Just trying to keep the left and right straight. I'm going to pull the pin here. So I'm going to pull these like so. And just even them up. And even these four up. And pull this on over the top. I'm going to give this a half twist. I'm going to put this through. And make sure I have all of these pieces. So I've got 4 on the right. Make sure I keep the pattern straight. I'm going to I have my 9 inches. I'm going to go under 2 over. Under 2 over 2. Under 2 over. Under 2 over 2. I'm just switching to a flat braid. I'm going to go 9 inches again, just as a rough. You can go longer, you can go shorter. I'm just trying to make 9, 9, and 9. And this makes a set of cuffs, so not that anybody cares, but try and share how I braid stuff. People are always asking, how do you make that? I said, well, I came up with this method. Some Arizona cuffs. And this is the paracord version. I'm going to back it up a little bit. It's hard to keep the camera in the right spot. So, and I'm the cameraman and the person braiding, so I can't see through the camera and braid, so you're going to run into issues. But it's under 2 over and under 2 over 2, because this is an even plating pattern. It makes M shapes, kind of pretty shapes, or it makes rings. I'm getting to about 9 inches, but I'd like to have this color turquoise on top. So now I've got 9 inches. So now I'm going to push it forward again. I'm going to bring the flat part up. I'm going to slide this part down. I'm going to put this on here. And the bottom strand points to the top strand. So I'm going to start on the left. Do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Sorry, that's 6. And then 7. 1, 2, 3. You want 4 on both sides. 7, 8. We're back to where the turquoise is on top. Now we're going to flip this piece out of the way. We're going to do with no core. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And I'm going to snug these down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, Put a pin in it. Now, you can use different cordages to do this, but I'm going to lay this up this way or down this way. I'm going to lay the top of this strand up here. Now this is Kevlar or para-aramid lacing tape for doing aircraft wiring harnesses. So I want to lock this off with a lashing that's simple. I'm pulling it tight. That's the second loop across. Third loop across. Fourth loop across. And I'm going to tuck the tail into the piece of shoelace. Close it off. Pull it through. Crank that down in that direction, crank it down in this direction. It's really useful to have a pair of pliers. And it's useful to have a knife. And it's Kevlar, so it's kind of hard to cut or so now one of the things you can do is you can take the pin out because it's lashed in place. You can peel it back. You can take one of the strands of the turquoise or another color. Put the shoelace in. You can lash it on the way up. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. You can drop it into the center here. And so that makes a nice little lashing. It won't come undone. And you can tuck the little feathers up underneath of the Kevlar. That way you don't see the lashing. Paracord is pretty neat material. I'll show you how I finish these. Since all the ends are right here, I do 3 fingers back and I cut it off, which is kind of dull. This is a little bigger than we'll want to fit in here. So I'm going to grab a torch, and you open these up by putting a needle in. And then down here, you weld the line. And that way it seals it so it'll only feather part way. There's 2. 3. 4. 5. 'If I had my glasses on, I could see it a little easier. 6. 7. And 8. And I'll show you what I mean. Once you weld that spot, if you fray the tips, they'll fray and become puffy, but they won't fray past the weld. So you'll end up with little frayed ends like that, which you can poof it out without any fear that it's going to unravel to be chaos. But you can get a certain amount of fray. And you can do this with paracord. It's kind of a cool thing to do, to have a finished look that still has a natural wear look to it. And I try and share a bunch of different stuff because I have a lot of weird tricks. Most people are like, how in the world do you do that? It's like, here you go. Here's how I do it. So these are kind of neat. So they're a form of like rope handcuff. So you put your hand through there, put your hand through here. If you pull, it locks down and it'll cinch up, but it has a wide area and doesn't really cut off the circulation. If you want to move it, you pinch this section, then it slides. You pinch this section, it slides, kind of like a Chinese finger torture device. It's kind of a fun thing, but it's good practice to go from round to flat, or round to flat to round, pull it through itself, back to flat, and then tie a knot and have all the tails on one end, but it requires setting it on the center bite. So I started with 4 7-foot strands, laid center bite in a square pattern, and then when you braid it around a mandrel, i.e. a Sharpie attached with a lark's head, or this is a cow's hitch, I guess, to a hook. That's just a hook tied into the wall. You can create a set of cuffs from 4 paracord strands that are 7 foot long and make a cool little fun toy. So these are pretty popular. They're soft. I make them out of leather as well. The nice part with the paracord is it slides better because the paracord allows it to slide. And it's a form of rope cuffs. It's a little gentler on wrists and doesn't cut off circulation as much. I don't know why I make the things I do, but people seem to like it. So it's also a good exercise if you're learning to braid, to go between round to flat to round to flat to round and transitioning between them. I am very fast at this, yes. Oh, people actually order braided items from you. How can they get in touch with you for your order? Well, please check out pocketsnakes.com. It's it's what I do, and these things are fun to watch. You know, I try and entertain folks as much as I can, and it's harder than you would imagine to try and manage a camera and what you're doing and not lose your mind. But you find the center bite of a couple cords, and the center bite of a couple cords, which requires you put the ends together. Cross the center bite, put this one on top. This one slides over and under. And that's the square start for this whole thing. That's kind of a fun thing. I mean, I'm pretty new to this whole setting up video and doing stuff live, but I find it's a little easier than trying to mess with the video. And since I don't edit the video anyway, so you take the top strand, you go under 2 over 2. You go under 2 over 2. You don't really want to pull on these, you just want to get them in place. Under 2 over 2. And under 2 over 2. And I pulled a little bit, so I'm pulling it back. And then this strand, which is the third strand, you have to lift the second strand up to seat it. Otherwise, you'll end up with a weird bubble or weird place. Under 2 over 2. And over 2, under 2. And then the turquoise will be back on top, and I'll have 8 plates in place around the mandrel, in this case a Sharpie. It doesn't have to be Sharpie. Not everybody has a Sharpie. It just happens to be about the same size as the round braided 8 plate with nothing in the center. You can see it's got kind of a ringed pattern. So you go under 2 over, under 2 over 2, under 2 over, under 2 over 2. And I'm happy people like watching me braid. I can't see the screen to watch the comments while I'm doing it, but when I get to a stopping point, I always try and engage. But it's a pretty simple pattern. This is not super complicated to braid. This is paracord, so it's pretty inexpensive material. Anybody can do this. It just takes practice. You have to have some measurements, have some idea what you're doing, but you don't have to be perfect at it. So you're just doing under 2 over whatever's there on both sides, which normally you'd prefer to have 7 strands, but it helps to keep the strand flat in this case because you want to keep it a flat shape. And it still locks together fairly well. And I try and get 9 inches here, so I got a few more plates to do on just 9 inches. But you can get pretty fast at this. I'm not the world's fastest platter or braider. I care more about keeping the tension exactly how I want it and laying the cord so it's pretty. But people don't really get to watch me braid unless they pay money and come take a class on braiding. So there's 9 inches, but I want the turquoise to be on top. So I'm going to do one more pass. And I'm going to back this up a little bit so you can see. And of course it slips off. Put it back on. But don't beat yourself up when you make mistakes. Just plug ahead and make progress. So we got the turquoise on top and the top cord should be plated this way. That way the top cord ends up on top pointing that way. So in this case, this is the top cord because this cord points that way. So you bring it and fold it around, and as though the mandrel is there, you just braid it. So we're just going to quickly 8 plate. And we're just keeping a little bit of tension on this because it has to have some tension or it will rotate on you. And you have to remember to rotate the cord so the flat inside is the inside. So the top side comes back to the top. But if you plated a little bit of flat material, to have this down pretty well. I'm trying to get up to 9 inches of round braid. And some people are like, well, why do you show how you do so? It's like, well, to me it's more interesting to show people the things I make and how I make them. And it'll take you probably an hour to do one of these. It takes me like 20-30 minutes. And it takes me less time if I'm not trying to talk to the camera and manage the camera and make sure I haven't lost my view. The camera hasn't shut off in the middle. But you'll notice this black strand's hiding back here. It's under 2/2. Sometimes you have to reach and untuck stuff and make sure you're splitting the pairs. But and this is pretty simple braid because it's only an 8 plate. Yeah, check out my other videos. Like, share, subscribe. Every little bit helps. I'm nowhere near getting monetizable by Facebook because you're going to be doing this for a long time to get monetized. I need to get to a crazy number of views and I need to have over 1,000 subscribers, and I'm sitting at like 800 subscribers now, which I'm shocked by, but I had 16 the other day just because I started live plating and live braiding. So how are we doing here? Not quite. I need 2 more passes. So you're always better braiding a hair long than a hair short. Just the nature of this. So I like to snug them down before I try and tug them through the hole left by the mandrel. And I don't care too much about if it stays straight or if it tries to unbraid. It's just to put a pin in it. I'm going to slide this forward again. So you break this free and you can see that's hollow, or sort of see it's hollow. And tuck this up through. I like to tuck 4 at a time, so if I can get all 4 to tuck in there, I'm pretty happy. I used to weld these together so that I'd heat them up and stick them in, but that doesn't help much. But it's just like a hollow shoelace cord, like you could go buy some shoelaces. Use it to pull stuff through. The reason I share how I do things is that way other people can kind of steal the ideas of how to make something and riff off of them. People, I think, care too much about how something's made, and I'd like to make myself some of those. It's like, well, you want to take the time and do it, go take one. Or if you want to support me, buy something off pocketsnakes.com, and it'll help me stay breeding this stuff. And I'll do more of it. If you have a particular color that you don't see, I probably have it as paracord, but okay. I'm going to pull this up through. Now it popped out. Okay, so I got 4 strands. Like I said, I used to weld these because it made it a whole lot easier, but then you got to cut them apart, which takes time too. It's easier to tuck them, just pull them. So there's 3. Notice my fingers between the 4 and the 3. And I missed one because it fell out. You can always go back and pull an extra strand through. There are really no fatal mistakes when you're making something fairly simple. And here I usually snug these up, these 4. And usually I pull the pin. Pin was just there as a reminder for where the end was. Pull it through. You notice there's about a half twist in this. You want a half twist. Makes it a little easier to do this. And then you want to kind of just see where you were. Sometimes you lose track of which strand's on which side. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I'm going to back the camera up. So the lock bottom strand is here. Break under 2 over, under 2 over 2. Just go into the flat braiding pattern. There's people that make me look silly braiding because they braid faster than I do and more accurately. But I just enjoy it. I find it soothing. Don't mind if I make errors. Just something about this is just, it's kind of like knitting, you know, but get bigger things made quicker with braiding than with knitting. Still a chain sennit, technically. Bunch of knots. So I'm working on, I went from round to flat. And I'm gonna check to see if I have 9 inches. I got a little bit more to go. And I can't see if I'm on the camera or if I've lost the camera. Bring the camera back. Under 2 over and under 2 over. Under 2 over 2, under 2 over. Under 2 over. So I'm back to these turquoise on top. I've got my 9 inches. I'm going to bring the camera forward again. Sorry for the jitters. I'm going to pop this out and repeat the process. So and this just creates a T shape, like a half twist in it. So top strand is over there. We're going to braid round around this core. So under 2 over, so that's 1. Under 2 over, 2. Under 2 over is 3. Under 2 over is 4. 5, 6, 7, 8. We're back to 2 turquoise on top, and there's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to squish those together. Give them a little bit of a snug. This is the top strand. We're going to flip this back out of the way. And under 2, twist the strand so the bottom side stays underneath. Twist the strand, make sure that bottom strand, so that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. It's really probably not necessary to get all the way up to 8, because at that point you're at 1.5 inches or so. But it's always better to have too much room than not enough. It's kind of like cutting something. You want to cut it. You don't want to cut it, and you can't cut it longer. So what we want to get in here, we're going to bring this yellow up and lay it. And we're going to bring this in parallel the other direction. Lay it on top and bring it around. So there's 1, bring it around, 2, 3, 4. Now this is flat braided aircraft wiring harness tape. It's technically it's like I think 100-pound tape. It's a 1/10 of an inch diameter, 1/10 of an inch across, 100th of an inch thick, but will hold as a breaking strength of 100 pounds or so. Put this inside the shoelace. Kind of pinch it. Pull it through. I always try and put this back in the chair. Let me grab the pliers. Oh. Grab the pliers. Oh. Grab the EMT shears. That's how tough they are. Chomp, 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 chomp. Okay, then you can unpin it. You can come in and separate it. You take the top turquoise one in this case, since the last one was turquoise. And I'm going to lay this the other direction. I'm going to come around. I go 1, tighten it up. 2, tighten it up. 3, tighten it up. 4. And then shoelace. And pull. You grab the fid and you can kind of work those up if you want, make them prettier, whatever. But let's, just for fun, let's finish these off. So you notice this one that I wrapped happens to be about 4 fingers down. I like about 3 fingers worth. Then if you're going to finish them, tuck in a fid and you see the color change on that. And that just gives it like a bell shape, and it won't feather beyond that, so that will stay even and do its thing. This is about 5/32 of an inch diameter paracord needle, or it's a candy leather large needle I've sanded down. I have so many different needles and gizmos to do what I do. I don't know, I think these details make something cool. And it helps it not just fray and become weirdly ugly. But now I've got all the blue ones, let's do the black ones. And then I'll answer your questions and see what people have been saying while I've been doing this, because I can't read the chat and do what I'm doing because the camera's up above my head, obviously. And yes, I sometimes end up hitting my fingers instead of the thing I'm trying to fray and weld. It's an occupational hazard, I would say. And black, you don't need a whole lot. But people ask, how do you do that? Or what's that that's on the end? Say it's a frayed knot. But I don't know. Frayed knot. It's a terrible joke. But it's not actually a knot. You're actually welding that section open. But for those that joined the channel, these are the cuffs I make. So these slide on this round rope core in the center. Get them on your hands. They best go this way. And you get them on, and they cinch down. You put them on a hard point or whatever, and they'll grab your hands, but they're wide so they don't cut off the circulation as badly as rope does. Quite comfortable over long periods of time, and they lock. Like trying to move this, you can't move this. Secret is you compress it, like Chinese finger torture, and then it unlocks. And then if you're worried about pinching something, you can put a pencil eraser up inside the braid and leave the eraser up. Creates a bump so this doesn't slide. They call these Arizona cuffs, or AZ cuffs. Anyway, this is turquoise and black. I gotta make some of these. So I decided to make a video. Have a great night.